Exile and the Throne of Light. The crystalline halls of Lumia Prime's royal palace shimmered with light refracted from 100,000 angles, as if the stars themselves had been frozen in place. Through its luminous corridors walked a man who did not belong. Daniel Stonnell, once a decorated special operative of Earth's Interstellar Peace Force, now bore a more controversial title, Exile. Branded a traitor by his own species for refusing to obey an order that would have resulted in the extinction of a sentient alien colony, Daniel had become a pariah. And yet here he was walking towards the throne room of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, summoned by the elusive King Thalion himself. His armor, though battle-scarred, was state-of-the-art, modified and customized beyond regulation. It hummed with quiet power, its crystalline inlays resonating subtly with the palace's alien architecture. The resonance wasn't lost on Daniel. He felt it in his bones, a kind of recognition, as though the palace itself knew something he didn't. The massive double doors to the throne room parted without a sound, revealing a chamber so vast the ceiling seemed to disappear into light. King Thalion, sovereign of Lumia Prime, sat on a throne carved from living crystal, its glow pulsing with his presence. He was tall and graceful, his silver skin radiant, his eyes a deep violet that held eons of wisdom and a sharpened blade's edge of scrutiny. But Daniel's gaze didn't linger on the king. It was drawn involuntarily to the woman seated beside him, a throne crafted for elegance and mobility, seemingly one with her body. Princess Ariana. He had heard of her, of course, the blind, paralyzed heir to the Lumian throne. Tales painted her as a tragic figure, noble, brilliant, but confined to stillness. The reality, however, disarmed him. Her presence was magnetic. Her silver-toned skin glowed softly. Her flowing white hair shimmered like moonlight, and her violet eyes, though blind, seemed to pierce right through the layers of armor, ego, and shame that Daniel carried. She sat not as a fragile relic, but as a poised sentinel, her expression unreadable except for the ghost of a knowing smile. Daniel Stonnell of Earth King Thalion spoke, his voice regal and sonorous, like thunder restrained. You have served our kingdom with honor. Few have braved the Veil Nebula and returned. Fewer still have saved a Lumian diplomat without asking for reward. Daniel bowed with practiced precision. The honor was mine, Your Majesty. Thalion tilted his head, his gaze sharpened. The honor, yes. But today I summon you not for your past deeds, but for something far more delicate. Daniel's brows twitched. I'm listening. The king gestured toward his daughter. As you see, my daughter faces what your people call disabilities, but we do not see her as broken. Her spirit is unyielding. Her mind is unmatched. And yet no suitor has dared see her beyond her body, beyond her title. Ariana's head turned, tracking her father's voice with an eerie grace. And now she interrupted smoothly, her tone silken with steel. He believes that because you are not one of us, you might finally see me for who I am, or at least who I refuse to stop being. There was a smirk in her voice, but her words carried weight, challenge, perhaps even hope, though Daniel couldn't be sure. Daniel stepped closer, eyes meeting hers, though he knew she couldn't see him. Your Highness, I don't see limitations. I see fire, and fire demands respect. That ghost of a smile grew real. Ariana leaned forward slightly, fingers brushing the crystalline armrest of her throne. That's the first honest thing someone said to me in years. Thalion let the silence breathe before continuing. We are entering delicate negotiations in the southern province. My daughter oversees that region's diplomatic operations. There is a matter requiring both martial presence and discretion. You will serve as her personal guard and advisor, should you accept. Daniel didn't hesitate. And if I refuse, I'll be disappointed, Ariana said dryly, but I imagine I'd get over it. Eventually, her tone dared him to back away. He didn't. I've never been good at walking away from impossible assignments, Daniel said, especially ones that come with sharp-tongued royalty. Thalian nodded, expression unreadable. Then, let the stars bear witness the exile, and the princess begin their mission not only for diplomacy, but for truth. As the audience ended and Daniel turned to follow Ariana's hover throne through the back halls of the palace, a strange silent tension hung between them. Not of hostility, of gravity, possibility, and something no crystal, no tech, no title could define. Whatever this mission was, it had already begun to change them both. A proposal that challenges the heart. The shuttle to Lumia's southern province soared like a shard of starlight across the upper atmosphere, its silent engines humming in tune with the crystalline currents below. Inside the cabin, Daniel sat opposite Ariana, separated not by distance, but by the delicate veil of unspoken tension. The kind that lingered between two people who saw too much, too quickly. Ariana's fingers glided across a holographic interface adapted to her neural commands. She didn't need to see the controls. She felt them. "You've been unusually quiet, Earthman," she said without lifting her head, a teasing lilt brushing the edge of her voice. Second thoughts already. Daniel tilted his head, studying her, just thinking how strange it is that, out of all the galaxies, all the stars, I'm flying into a political mess with a woman who scares me more than a battlefield. That earned him a small chuckle. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Or so I've been told. Their banter floated between them, light on the surface. But below it, currents ran deeper. There was a gravity to Ariana, unapologetically intelligent, unapologetically broken, and yet entirely whole in a way few people ever managed to be. And she wielded that awareness like a blade sharpened by pain. "You understand, don't you?" she said suddenly, her tone shifting. "That this arrangement, my father's suggestion, it isn't romantic. He thinks I'm lonely, or that I need protecting. Is he wrong?" Ariana turned her head toward him. Though her violet eyes couldn't see him, they narrowed all the same. "Would you ask that if I could walk?" Daniel didn't flinch. "I would ask that if you were Empress of the Stars and could level a fleet with a thought." Silence stretched between them until Ariana's lips curled into a reluctant smile. "You're infuriatingly difficult to offend. Another point in your favor." "I'll take it," he said. "Though I should warn you, I have no interest in being a political pawn." Ariana leaned back in her hover throne, her movements elegant despite the mechanical assistance. "Then we understand each other. No charades, no polite masks." Their shuttle descended toward the provincial capital, a city of crystalline spires and glowing flora spread like frozen lightning across a rolling plain. As they stepped out together onto the landing platform, the waiting dignitaries bowed, but their gazes lingered longer than protocol demanded. Whispers rippled like static in the air. Ariana was used to it. Daniel was not. "Let them look," she murmured without turning. "They're wondering why I brought a human. They'll assume it's strategy or desperation." "And what is it really?" Daniel asked. Ariana gave a sly smile, curiosity. Inside the palace's antechamber, they were greeted by Lord Veen, administrator of the province. His silver skin was darker than most Lumerians, and his stare held a trace of disdain. "Your Highness," he said, bowing deeply, "I see the rumors were true." Ariana's tone cooled. "Daniel Stanilau is here at my invitation as my guard and advisor. I trust that will not be a problem." "Of course not," Veen replied with tight lips. Though some might question the wisdom of including an outsider in such delicate matters. Daniel remained silent, eyes steady. Ariana, however, didn't hide her disdain. Some forget that wisdom is not exclusive to lineage, nor is honor. Veen stiffened, but said no more. As he escorted them deeper into the palace, Daniel noticed the calculating glances from courtiers behind glimmering screens. Every step they took left ripples in the political pond. and someone somewhere didn't like it. Later that evening, after diplomatic briefings and exhausting rounds of ceremonial meetings, Daniel walked Ariana to her private chambers. The corridor was silent, bathed in sapphire twilight. "You've been quiet," he noted, slowing his steps beside her. "I'm calculating risk," she replied softly. "Of what?" "Tomorrow's guest," she said, pausing at her door. "Ambassador Krell arrives at first light, and I plan to refuse his proposal." Daniel's brow lifted. Bold. "I'm tired of being a prize to be negotiated," she said. "Tired of being reduced to my legs, my eyes, my title." Her voice trembled just for a breath. Daniel stepped closer. "Then don't be. You are already more than any of that." She reached out her hand, unerring, resting against his chest plate. "The court will rage. My father will hesitate. But I choose this path. I choose me. And if someone chooses to walk that path beside you," he asked. She smiled, her fingers curling slightly. "Then he'd better be ready for a storm." Daniel covered her hand with his own. "I like storms." Their moment held suspended between duty and desire, diplomacy and defiance. In that breath of silence, something unspoken bloomed, and the war tomorrow would not just be political, it would be personal. Spires of power and shadows of intention. The southern province of Lumia Prime unfolded beneath the royal shuttle like a dream sculpted from refracted starlight. Spires of crystal jutted skyward in elegant spirals, humming with energy drawn from the planet's core. The flora glowed faintly like a sea of bioluminescent stars blooming on the ground. From above, it looked serene. But as the vessel descended, Daniel could feel the tension in the atmosphere thicken. This was not a place of peace, but a fault line of political friction. Inside the shuttle, Ariana sat poised in her hover throne, eyes unfocused but purposeful. Her fingers danced across a holographic interface designed to respond to her neural impulses. Daniel watched her in silence, admiring the way she wielded her disability like a weapon, never apologetic, never passive. "The Drachnid delegation arrives at dawn," she said at last, her tone perfectly composed. "Ambassador Krell will lead them. He's the seventh son of their emperor." Daniel leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "And he's here to propose an alliance. Through marriage." Ariana didn't turn, but a smile curved at the corner of her lips. "You catch on quickly." "Yes. In Drachnid culture, physical limitations are considered irrelevant. Mental acuity is revered. To them, I'm a perfect candidate, sharp mind, royal bloodline. And ironically, my condition makes me more desirable." Daniel raised a brow. "And how do you feel about that?" "I feel like a political algorithm being optimized," she said flatly. "But I've played this game too long to be surprised anymore." Their shuttle touched down on a landing platform surrounded by tiered balconies of glowing stone. Dignitaries and aides lined the edges in formal formation. As Ariana and Daniel emerged, a wave of whispers rustled through the assembly. Their presence together drew immediate speculation. The princess with the outsider. A scandal in slow motion. "Let them talk," Ariana said under her breath, guiding her hover throne down the ramp. "Half the court already doubts my competency. May as well give them something real to worry about." Daniel smiled faintly. "You're enjoying this?" "Immensely." At the entrance to the provincial palace, they were met by Lord Veen, the regional administrator. He bowed low, but his expression was taut. His skin was darker than most Lumerians, deep silver with sharp violet eyes that did little to mask disdain. "Your Highness," he said smoothly, "welcome home, and welcome, sir. I see the rumors of a human advisor were not exaggerated." "Daniel Stenell serves at my personal request," Ariana replied, her tone immediately cool. "He has proven invaluable." Veen's lips twitched. "Of course, though I'm sure some may question the wisdom of such an unconventional choice." Daniel held his gaze without flinching. Wisdom often arrives in unconventional packages. The administrator gave a tight smile and gestured toward the inner halls. Then, let us prepare for tomorrow's summit. As they moved through the crystalline corridors, Daniel couldn't help but notice the sidelong glances and murmured whispers behind veiled fans. Every noble they passed seemed more interested in judging their pairing than in the looming diplomatic event. "This place feels like a theater," he muttered. Ariana didn't disagree. "Oh, it is. And we're center stage." That night, after hours of protocol meetings, strategic briefings, and ceremonial greetings, Daniel escorted Ariana back to her private chambers. The palace had grown quieter, shadows lengthening along the carved walls. The echo of their steps mingled with the distant chime of the wind against crystal. "You've barely said a word all evening," he said, pausing beside her door. "I'm conserving energy for tomorrow," she answered. Then more softly, "Krell won't take no for an answer. Not from me. And definitely not with you standing beside me." Daniel tilted his head. "Are you planning to say no?" Ariana turned toward him. "I'm planning to say no to being a prize. I'll negotiate peace. I'll agree to economic cooperation, but I will not become a token for alliance building. Not again." Her voice held both defiance and fear, as if she knew the cost of refusal might be greater than offense, it might be blood. Daniel took a step closer. "You shouldn't have to fight this alone." She reached for him, hand finding the center of his chest, as though guided by instinct. Her fingers curled slightly, resting there, as if testing whether his heart beat with the same fury as hers. "I'm not afraid of war," she whispered. "I'm afraid of losing my right to choose." "You won't," he said firmly. "Not while I'm breathing." Their hands remained clasped in the corridor's soft glow, unshaken by politics or legacy. Somewhere behind them, they knew eyes were watching. But in that moment, only two truths existed: her voice and his promise. Tomorrow, everything would change. The night before the storm. The hours before dawn settled over the southern palace like a held breath. The crystalline garden shimmered with residual twilight, casting silver reflections across the mirrored walkways. Daniel stood just beyond the archway of Ariana's chambers, watching the bioluminescent flora respond to her presence. The entire palace seemed to lean toward her, as if aware of what she carried, not just rank or lineage, but something far more dangerous in tension. She emerged from the soft glow of her private sanctum, cloaked in white and gold, not in formality but quiet defiance. Her hover throne moved without sound, guided by micro-adjustments of her mind. And yet for the first time that evening, Daniel noticed hesitation in her composure. Not fear, something deeper. Vulnerability. He stepped forward. "You look like a goddess preparing for war." Ariana smiled faintly. "I feel like a sacrificial offering dressed for display." "You don't have to go through with it," he said quietly. "This meeting. This farce." She turned toward him. "And let Krell claim insult and escalate tensions between two empires. I can't afford that, but I can control the narrative." There was silence between them, a silence too heavy for diplomacy and too delicate for jest. Finally, Daniel asked the question that had burned in his chest since sunset. "Why me?" Ariana tilted her head. "Because you didn't flinch." "At what?" "At me," she said. "My body, my eyes, the way I move, the way I don't. You didn't avert your gaze. You didn't pity me. You spoke like I was a commander, not a case." Daniel stepped closer. "You don't need a body that runs to be dangerous, Ariana." And yet she whispered, her fingers reaching toward his cheek with uncanny precision, "You make me feel like I could fly." Her touch was warm, electric, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with skin. Daniel's breath hitched as she leaned forward, her palm resting gently on his chest. "We don't have much time," she said. "Tomorrow will shatter expectations. And what about tonight? Tonight is the only honest moment we'll get," she said, her voice trembling like a string pulled tight. "Before the masks return, before the weapons are drawn." She moved closer. The distance between them dissolved. Daniel lowered his head. And in that moment, amidst the glow of singing crystals and shifting starlight, they kissed not with desperation but with recognition, as if they had been orbiting this collision for lifetime. When they parted, her cheeks glowed. Not from light, from life. I didn't expect that, she murmured, breathless. You always expect everything, he replied. Exactly, she said with a smile, which is why this scares me. Before either could speak again, the hovering signal chime pulsed low and blue privacy breached. Daniel's reflexes ignited, turning toward the shadows near the garden wall. A silhouette ducked behind the flowering crystal trees, too small for a soldier, too clumsy for trained spies. We had an audience, he muttered. Let them whisper, Ariana said, her expression sharpening. Let them see. Let them understand that I am not theirs to bargain. I choose. Daniel looked at her eyes, searching. And if that choice leads to war, she looked up at him with something between fire and heartbreak. Then, war has never been more worth it. She turned to leave but hesitated. There's something else you need to know, she said. About tomorrow. The trials Krell has invoked. He stepped beside her. Suitor trials. I've heard the rumors. They're not just about testing worthiness, she said. They're meant to reveal the true nature of a man's heart. Through combat, through judgment, through devotion. Daniel exhaled. And if I fail? You won't, she whispered. Because for the first time in my life, I believe in something no one else can see. Us. She reached out again, placing her hand over his. Their connection pulsed not just emotional, but something crystalline and ancient. Something neither of them had words for. As if the palace itself acknowledged what had formed between them. Daniel leaned down, forehead touching hers. You have never needed saving, he said. But if they come for you, if they try to cage what you are, they will find me already waiting at the gates. Ariana's voice was barely audible. Then we fight as one. Above them, the moonlight refracted through the palace's highest spire, casting dancing ribbons of gold and violet across their faces. The world outside still believed in diplomacy, in titles, in bloodlines and boundaries. But within this quiet moment, kiss, sweet soul deep, defiant in its honesty, a war had already been won. The arena of masks and blades the next morning arrived not with light, but with weight. Whispers spread through the crystalline halls like a virus, infecting every corner of the provincial palace. Servants moved faster. Nobles lingered in shadowed corridors. Everyone had heard Ambassador Krell had invoked the ancient rite of suitor trials, a law older than peace, older than logic. Daniel stood beside Ariana in the grand hall, watching couriers rush with ceremonial artifacts while armed guards tightened the security around the crystal arena. Lord Veen approached, his expression unreadable, but the flicker in his eyes betrayed satisfaction. The Drachnid ambassador has formally submitted the suitor challenge, he announced. 3 trials as tradition demands, combat wisdom and devotion. Daniel didn't blink, accepted. Ariana's voice cut sharply before Veen could speak again. You should know the challenges are not symbolic. They were designed centuries ago to eliminate political threats, not elevate lovers. Veen's lips twitched. All the more reason to admire your companion's bravery. Your Highness. Daniel met his gaze. I'm not here to be admired. I'm here because I'm not afraid to be tested. That afternoon, while the court buzzed with anticipation, Daniel and Ariana retreated to her private garden. It was the only place untouched by scrutiny. The crystalline trees shimmered, casting glints of light across Ariana's face as she floated quietly in her throne, uncharacteristically still. You don't have to do this, she whispered. Daniel sat beside her on the low stone bench. I know. She turned toward him, blind eyes haunted. These trials were meant for Lumerians, beings who've trained their whole lives to master the crystal arts to navigate the matrices. If you fail, they won't just dismiss you, they'll disqualify everything we've shared. I'm not afraid of failure, Daniel said. I'm afraid of losing what's real. Her hand reached for his. Last night was more than rebellion, more than desire. It was the first time I didn't feel broken. Daniel leaned in his forehead, brushing hers. You were never broken, Ariana. The world just didn't know how to hold something so rare. She smiled faintly, lips trembling. The court would say this is improper. A princess sharing kisses with a human warrior. And what do you say? I say propriety is for people too afraid to love. Their kiss this time was slower, deeper, filled not with fire, but with gravity. When they parted, the chime of a message, crystal sounded from the garden wall. Lord Thon appeared moments later, breathless. Forgive the intrusion, Your Highness, he said, eyes flicking between them. But I had to warn you. Krell doesn't just want to win, he wants to destroy. He believes your union is unnatural, and he's not alone. Ariana stiffened. You're saying there's a conspiracy? There's more than one, Thon admitted. Several members of the Noble Council have allied with the Drachnids. They've been promised advanced biotech in exchange for access. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Access to what? To the child, Thon said. Silence fell like a blow. Ariana gasped, her hand instinctively moving to her abdomen. How do they know? Thon hesitated. They don't. Not for certain. But Krell suspects. His people have been studying hybridization for decades unsuccessfully. Your connection with Daniel, it represents everything they couldn't achieve. Daniel's hand wrapped protectively around Ariana's. So the trials aren't about honor. They're about removal. They plan to make you fail, Thon confirmed. Or fall. Ariana's voice grew hard. Then let them try. They've underestimated one thing. Thon raised an eyebrow. What? She looked up at Daniel. The one person in this galaxy who saw me not as an heir, not as a crippled figurehead, but as a person. And that person is willing to fight empires for me. Daniel's jaw tightened. Let them bring everything they have. We'll answer with everything we are. The sun dipped low, casting a golden sheen across the arena as nobles filed into elevated terraces. Above it all, Ariana sat in the royal observation pod posture, flawless, but fists clenched around her throne's arms. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears. Inside the crystal arena, Daniel stepped into the circle. The trial of combat begins, Lord Veen declared. By Drachnid tradition, the challenger may choose the nature of battle. Krell stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with cold satisfaction. I choose. Crystal dancing. The court gasped. Crystal dancing wasn't just an art, it was an intimate war form manipulating energy fields through harmony and balance. No human had ever performed it. Daniel said nothing. But as the arena lit up floor, shifting into platforms of glass-like crystal, the hum of resonant frequencies rising, he recalled Ariana's words. Harmony, not domination. Feel the crystal. Let it answer you. Krell struck first, launching waves of energy in calculated arcs. Daniel moved, and the crystals moved with him. Harmony in the heart of war. Crystals pulsed beneath Daniel's feet, as if they recognized him not by species, but by something deeper. He wasn't Lumerian. He wasn't born to resonate with these alien constructs, but something had changed. Something had been awakened. Krell's first wave struck hard, a jagged shard of compressed crystal energy ripping toward Daniel's chest. Reflex kicked in. He rolled low, adjusted his footing, and as his fingers brushed the arena floor, a ripple danced outward. The crystals responded. The spectators stirred. No, Krell hissed, narrowing his reptilian eyes. That's impossible. Daniel stood tall, armor humming. Ariana's teachings echoed in his mind, not instructions, but feeling. She had described the throne as an extension of herself, guided by thought, trust, and emotional intent. Let go of control, trust connection. As Krell twisted his hands in another flourish, columns of light and blade erupted from the arena. But Daniel wasn't resisting anymore. He flowed. The crystals didn't resist him either. They welcomed him. Each step created a platform. Each breath reshaped the field. Where Krell's movements were sharp, brutal, Daniel's became a dance of rhythm and instinct, the human warrior moving not against the system, but with it. From the royal pod, Ariana gripped her throne tightly. Her neural interface pulsed erratically, not in alarm but in recognition. She felt Daniel moving through the lattice, touching the crystals the way she did. It was as if their bond had extended into the very DNA of the structure. Veen leaned in beside her, visibly shaken. He shouldn't be able to do that. Ariana didn't look at him. He's not doing it. They're doing it together. Krell roared, losing composure. He launched a series of high-energy attacks designed to destabilize the field. The arena shuddered. Some crystals cracked. A few platforms disintegrated. Daniel stumbled once, but only once. Then he shifted tactics, not defense, reflection. He moved toward Krell, reading the patterns in his opponent's aggression, not matching them, but inverting them. He began mirroring the flow of energy, redirecting it along alternate crystalline paths. The result was stunning. Each of Krell's aggressive attacks bent back toward him, not as strikes but as echoes of his own rage. The crowd gasped. A few younger nobles rose to their feet in disbelief. On his final charge, Krell attempted a forbidden technique, destabilizing the arena's core. It was desperate, reckless, foolish. Daniel waited, just long enough. Then, using the same energy, he diverted it into a looping spiral, forming a cage of harmonized resonance. The crystals rose like walls, locking around Krell's body in a prison built from his own fury. The arena went still. "The trial is concluded," Lord Veen declared with strained composure. "Daniel Stonnell has demonstrated command of crystal dancing. A human has achieved resonance." The nobles were silent for a beat, then voices erupted. Disbelief, awe, protest. Some accused foul play. Others declared divine alignment. But none could deny what they had witnessed. Ariana didn't speak. She didn't move. But her eyes, blind though they were, shone like twin stars ignited by pride. Later, in the privacy of her chamber, she waited by the window of polished crystal breath, shallow senses stretched. When Daniel entered, she turned immediately, guided not by sight but by presence. "You moved like the wind," she said softly, "but sharper." Daniel gave a tired smile. "I almost fell on my ass twice." Ariana laughed, rich, unguarded. "Don't ruin the fantasy." He approached, brushing a hand against her cheek. "You're the fantasy, Ariana. I'm just trying to keep up." She drew him into a sudden embrace, her body pressed close. "How did you know how to do it?" she whispered. "I didn't," he said honestly. "But you taught me something the Drachnids never understood. Crystal tech isn't about conquest. It's about connection. That's what you showed me." She leaned into him. "And yet, there's more." Daniel pulled back just enough to meet her gaze. "More. I had it confirmed this morning," she whispered, pressing his hand gently to her lower abdomen. He stilled. "You mean—" "Yes." Her voice broke slightly. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was unlike any before, not empty, but full of fear, of awe, of wonder. Daniel's hand didn't move. "Are you okay?" "I don't know," she admitted. "The baby is reacting to my neural interface. The crystals, everything is more sensitive, alive, as if he's not just forming within me. He's forming with everything." He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. "Then we'll face this together, no matter what comes." Outside, the night fell deeper, but between them something ancient and radiant was just beginning. Truth in the shadows, fire in the blood. By dawn, the entire palace buzzed, not with celebration, but with unease. News of Daniel's victory had spread like wildfire, too fast, too loud. Courtiers whispered of omens and heresy. That a human could command crystal tech defied centuries of Lumerian belief. But beneath the stunned reverence, a darker current stirred fear. In the great atrium, Lord Thon pushed through murmuring nobles to reach Ariana's private garden. She sat beneath the arched crystal canopy, bathed in gentle morning light, Daniel beside her. The moment Thon entered, she knew something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked before he spoke. He held up a glowing data pearl. Intercepted transmission. Krell's request to modify the next trial, the trial of devotion. Daniel frowned. Modify how? Thon hesitated. He's invoking an ancient clause, one that allows the challenge to take place within an unshielded crystal conduit raw energy exposure. For Drachnids and Lumerians, it's taxing, but survivable. For a human, Daniel understood instantly, it could kill me. Thon nodded grimly. The clause was never meant to be used in mixed species cases. Krell's exploiting a loophole. Ariana's fists clenched on her throne's armrests. If Daniel refuses, by Lumerian law, Thon said softly, he forfeits the trial, and any right to lay claim to your hand. He paused. Or your child. The words fell like thunder. Daniel rose, voice low. He knows. He suspects Ariana replied, her tone steel, and he's panicking. If a human and a Lumerian created life together naturally without biotech, it shatters everything the Drachnid Empire believes about control. They don't want to stop us, Daniel murmured. They want to study us. Ariana turned to Thon. Who else knows? I've traced connections, Thon said. Several noble houses have been bribed. They've promised access, genetic data. Some even offered your child in exchange for imperial tech. Daniel surged forward. They want to steal our child before he's even born. They want what they can't create, Thon said grimly. But your bond, your union, it was real, natural, and that terrifies them. Ariana's hand found Daniel's. Then we protect him, whatever it takes. Before he could respond, one of Ariana's handmaidens rushed in, pale and breathless. Your Highness, your throne. Something's happening. All eyes turned. The hover throne pulsed with light, not from its base crystal, but from Ariana herself. Her skin shimmered faintly, the same glow now radiating from the back of her hands, her temples, her stomach. I feel everything, she whispered. The palace network, the gardens, every matrix. It's inside me. Daniel knelt beside her. The pregnancy. It's accelerating your connection. King Thalion arrived moments later, flanked by elite royal guards. His gaze locked on Ariana, and for the first time, true awe filled his face. The ancient texts spoke of this, he murmured. A convergence of biology and emotion, of harmony between species. Ariana, your condition, your limitations, they were never flaws. They were preparation. Preparation for what Daniel asked, rising to stand protectively between them. Thalion looked at them both. For evolution. Before anyone could speak, Lord Thon returned, this time visibly shaken. The Drachnids, they're trying to access the central crystal matrix. If they succeed, they could compromise the palace's entire network, including Ariana. She's part of the system now, Daniel said, jaw tightening. If they corrupt it, they could harm her and the baby. Ariana closed her eyes. Not if I get there first. You can't enter the central chamber alone, Thalion warned. The feedback would overwhelm your consciousness. Then I'll go with her, Daniel said without hesitation. Thalion looked between them, slowly nodding. I will guide the interface, but be warned, what you attempt has never been done. You will be vulnerable, exposed. Daniel's voice was steady. We already are, and that's our strength. Together they moved toward the central sanctum. Ariana's throne no longer glided. It floated seamlessly, absorbing energy as she passed. Every crystal along the hallways lit as they approached, responding not to commands but to presence. Inside the chamber, the convergence began. Thalion placed one hand on the matrix core. Ariana reached out with her mind, guided by instinct and emotion. Daniel placed his hand on hers, anchoring her. In that moment, their consciousnesses merged. Ariana felt Daniel's heartbeat, his fear, his love. Daniel felt the matrix, the pulse of generations of crystal memory. The baby, already aware, already resonant, joined them. From the palace's perimeter, the Drachnid sabotage triggered. Crystals shuddered. Energy spiked. But instead of shattering the system, adapted, redirected, responded, not to force, to love. In a final surge of defiance, the central matrix expelled every foreign command. The lights across the palace pulsed in golden waves, and the Drachnid's attempt failed, not because of power, but because of unity. In the heart of the storm, 3 heartbeats echoed as one, breaking the code of destiny. The moment the Drachnid sabotage failed, a pulse of golden energy rippled outward from the palace's crystal heart. Across the southern province, the effect was immediate defense systems recalibrated, corrupted nodes rebooted, and foreign interfaces were forcibly purged. But within the sanctum, the transformation had only just begun. Ariana gasped as her body trembled, her neural interface glowing so intensely it lit the entire chamber. The energy no longer simply responded to her. It flowed through her unimpeded like blood through veins. For a heartbeat, she was the palace. She was the song of the crystals, the archive of generations, the soul of every resonance. The baby, she's whispered. He's accelerating everything. Daniel held her steady, feeling the pulse of life through her skin, warm, powerful, luminous. Ariana's breath hitched again. The pain wasn't just hers. It was shared. He could feel it echoing in his own nerves like a shadow of her transformation crossing into his body through their link. She's becoming something else, Thon whispered in awe, standing at the sanctum's edge. She's not just Lumerian anymore. Thalion stood tall behind the matrix core, his voice reverent. She's becoming the bridge, the living bond between our kind and yours. Suddenly, alarms flared. A blast rocked the outer corridors, distant but closing. One of Thalion's guards staggered into the room, armor, scorched voice hoarse. Krell has breached the palace. He's bypassed the outer halls with a portable rift generator. He's heading here with his elite guard. Thon stepped forward. We can hold them off. Daniel shook his head, eyes narrowing. We need to finish what we started. If they reach this chamber and sever Ariana's link mid-transition, they won't. Ariana said, voice steady despite the energy surging around her. Because I'll finish it before they arrive. But the Matrix can't contain that much resonance, Thon warned. You'll burn yourself alive. No, she replied, her voice quiet, but certain. We'll survive it together. Daniel looked into her eyes. Though blind, they radiated clarity he had never seen before. I'm not leaving your side, he said. She smiled. Then hold on. As Krell and his guards breached the inner corridor, Daniel removed his power armor. It hissed open and fell away with a metallic sigh, leaving only his undersuit and bare hands. What are you doing? Thon shouted. Daniel stepped into the core's platform beside Ariana. You said it yourself. This was never about control. It's about harmony. The armor isolates me, but I don't need isolation. I need contact. Ariana reached for him and their fingers touched. Instantly, the Matrix reacted. The sanctum dimmed as if pulling all ambient light inward toward them. Krell appeared in the archway, flanked by 2 biomechanical monsters fused with dark crystal and synthetic rage. Stop them, he bellowed. Sever the connection. That child is our future. No Thalion growled, stepping between them. You're centuries too late. Krell shoved forward, activating a pulsing orb, a neural disruptor illegal across most civilized systems, designed to shatter the mind-body link in living crystal interfaces. He hurled it at Ariana. Daniel moved. The orb struck his back with a shriek of energy, but it didn't kill him. It ignited him. The resonance already flowing through his skin burst into light, wrapping around him like a second skin of living crystal. Ariana screamed, not in pain but in instinct, and her energy met his in a surge that erupted outward. A shockwave of raw harmony exploded through the sanctum. Krell was thrown backward, his implants shorting. His guards fell. The disruptor turned to dust. And Daniel stood glowing, the energy burning bright through his veins, his heartbeat synchronized with Ariana's and their unborn child's. Ariana's body lifted off her throne, floating in the radiant nexus. The hover throne shattered not violently, but liberated its components, returning to the network it once served. "I can feel my legs," she whispered. Daniel stepped closer, eyes wide. "Ariana, you're walking." She touched the floor as if it were made of stardust. Her limbs moved, not forced, not guided, but alive. Her balance shifted, but Daniel caught her in his arms, the two of them now linked in body and soul. "You said love could change everything," she murmured. Daniel smiled. "I didn't realize it could rewrite biology." They turned toward Krell, who lay half-conscious in the rubble of his ambitions. The once proud ambassador stared in horror, not at the power he had failed to steal, but at the truth now embodied before him. They had become evolution, not forced, not manufactured, not programmed, but born of trust, vulnerability, and something Drachnid science had never accounted for: love. A child of light. A world reborn. The palace was still, not silent. No, the crystals hummed with harmonic resonance, but still in the way a world holds its breath at the edge of revelation. Every chamber, every corridor, every interface had realigned to the presence of something new, not a threat, not a weapon, a birth. Ariana stood in the heart of the sanctum barefoot, her steps tentative but growing stronger by the second. Her silver skin shimmered with soft pulses of energy, mirroring the light patterns flowing across Daniel's forearms. The palace, the network, the crystalline web that once required conscious interface now sang for them, through them. "It's begun," she whispered. Daniel stood beside her, stunned by the warmth that still radiated from her touch. Her legs, limbs long paralyzed, moved naturally, guided by no external system, no throne, no device. "Only will. No biotech," he murmured. "No surgery, no implants. Only resonance," she replied. "Only love." They turned as King Thalion entered, accompanied by loyal guards and Lord Thon. The king stopped mid-step, eyes wide. For a long moment, his mask of regal control slipped, revealing something far deeper: a father's awe. "You're walking," Thalion breathed. "I am," Ariana said, voice trembling. "He healed me not with tools but with presence, with what we created together." Her hands instinctively cradled her stomach. A glow, faint but visible, emanated from within her womb, as if the child himself were now a node in the network. Thon's voice was reverent. "We've seen crystal harmonics react to minds, to emotions. But this is the first time we've seen it react to life itself. The child is merging with the network," Thalion said. "He's not just connected, he's enhancing it, accelerating it." Daniel stepped forward. "Then it's happening faster than we thought." Thalion nodded. "Come with me, both of you." They walked not as royalty and soldier, not as experiment and subject, but as a family into the newly restored crystal garden. Every bloom, every spire bent gently toward Ariana as she passed. The garden itself had transformed. Crystalline vines shimmered with ambient energy, reflecting not just light, but intention. As they reached the center, Ariana winced, gripping Daniel's arm. "He's responding again." Thalion gestured to a resting platform, which reshaped itself the moment she approached. Ariana laid back, her breath rapid. The energy from her core pulsed across the ground in spirals. "It's too soon," she gasped. "The child isn't due for weeks." "No," Daniel said, his voice low but steady. "He's not early, he's ready." As the resonance intensified, Thon activated emergency protocols, alerting the royal physicians and neural synchronists. But the moment they entered, the crystals rejected their presence gently but firmly. "It's not something we can control," Thalion said, eyes locked on his daughter. "This child doesn't belong to science. He belongs to something older." Daniel sat beside Ariana, holding her hand. "I'm here." "I know," she whispered, sweat beading on her brow. "And so is he." A brilliant column of light erupted from beneath the garden floor, encompassing Ariana. Energy cascaded around her in golden filaments, wrapping her in warmth, in memory, in the essence of the bond that had formed not through biology alone, but through sacrifice and belief. And then, as the light reached its apex, a cry, soft, bright, new. The energy receded like the tide, and in Ariana's arms lay a child, small, radiant. His skin shimmered with silver tones veined in soft gold. His eyes opened violet like hers, yet burning with Daniel's fire. He did not wail. He smiled. Crystals all around the garden lit in synchrony, like a symphony swelling at the arrival of its final movement. The garden sang not with sound, but with light and life. Thalion stepped forward, tears welling in his eyes. "He is the convergence." Ariana looked up. "We'll name him Lien." Daniel turned surprised. "Lien? From the ancient Lumerians," she said. "It means star-born." Daniel looked down at his son, who now reached up with tiny fingers, glowing faintly, as if already sinking to the crystal interface surrounding him. "Lien," Daniel echoed, emotion tightening his throat. "Star-born. Perfect." Thon fell to one knee. "He's already influencing the network. My own link is clearer. I can feel him, not probing, not intruding, inviting." Ariana held her son close. "He doesn't want to dominate. He wants to share." The realization spread. For centuries, technology had been a means of control by Drachnid science, by Lumerian tradition, even by human ambition. But in this child, they saw a new paradigm. Harmony, not supremacy. Thalion bowed his head. "Let the records show today evolution came not from the lab or war or power. It came from love." And as the sun rose over the reawakened palace, little Lien reached out toward the light, and it responded. A new dawn for the stars. The birth of Prince Lien did not mark the end of a story, it began a legend. Word spread quickly, not through official channels, not through decrees or press briefings, but through whispers, through resonance. The crystal networks of Lumia Prime hummed with a song that no architect had programmed. It pulsed across star systems, encoded in light and sound, in emotion and awe, the tale of a child born of love, not design. At first, the Council of Elders was divided. Some saw Lien as a miracle, others as a threat. They convened in secret, poring over ancient records, long-forgotten codices written in etched crystal and sealed memories. But the answers had already arrived in the child himself. By his 7th day, Lien could interact with every crystal node in the palace without physical contact. Screens blinked to life as he passed. Energy flows rerouted instinctively to protect his presence. Servants found themselves calmer, more focused, simply by being near him. He was not manipulating the network. He was welcoming it. One morning, Ariana stood with Daniel on the high terrace overlooking the crystal gardens, their son cradled in her arms. Below them, nobles and emissaries gathered not to debate, but to witness. "The galaxy is watching," Daniel murmured. Ariana nodded. "And they're not watching to judge, they're watching to learn." Behind them, King Thalion emerged, no longer the untouchable monarch, but a grandfather reborn. He held an ancient codex, its crystalline pages glowing faintly. "We found something," he said softly. "A prophecy, hidden in the vaults beneath the capital, written by one of the first harmonists before the great separation between our kind and others." He opened the codex. The text floated above the page, displayed in shimmering runes that slowly translated themselves. "And in the time when science fails, when domination turns to dust, A child shall be born of two worlds with hands unbound by history, whose laughter awakens the stone, whose heartbeat binds the stars. The star-born shall guide the broken toward harmony. Daniel stared at the final line, unable to breathe for a moment. Leah and Ariana whispered, "He's not just the bridge, he's the map." Across the terrace, Lord Thon approached, joined by delegates from three previously unaligned species. Among them stood a human ambassador, a Lumerian scholar, and astonishingly, a Drachnid scientist, stripped of military rank, holding no weapons, only a crystal tablet. "We come not with demands," the Drachnid said, bowing deeply, "but with questions, and if permitted, with hope." Ariana exchanged a glance with Daniel. "Hope," she echoed. "That's a good place to begin." That evening, the palace held a gathering unlike any in its long history. Not a coronation, nor a trial, but a conversation. Nobles, refugees, scholars, and dreamers from dozens of worlds stood together not to pledge loyalty, but to listen. At its center, Daniel held Leon in his arms, while Ariana stood tall beside him, walking unassisted, every step a statement of triumph. "My son was not born to rule over you," Ariana said, her voice echoing across the amphitheater. "He was born to remind us what we forgot. That power is not domination, it's connection." Daniel stepped forward. "For too long, we've built walls of code and armor between our species, between each other. My people exiled me because I refused to end a life I saw as valuable. Ariana's people tried to hide her because they believed a body must be perfect to hold purpose." He looked down at his son. "But this boy, this star-born, proves we were all wrong. Perfection is not symmetry, it's synchrony. It's when hearts beat together, not in uniformity, but in harmony." Silence followed, but not the silence of doubt. It was the silence of awakening, and then a sound. Leon giggled. The moment his laughter rang out, every crystal structure in the amphitheater responded, lighting into vivid patterns, forming an intricate glowing mosaic across the sky dome. Stars aligned into constellations not charted on any map. Not signals, stories, images of their journey. Daniel's arrival, Ariana's struggle, their kiss in the gardens, the trials, the sabotage, the healing, the birth, all rendered in refracted light. Even the hardened nobles wept. Later that night, as the world slept, Daniel and Ariana sat together in the crystal chamber that had once felt like a prison, but now felt like home. Leon slept peacefully between them, his small hands glowing faintly, still subconsciously linked to the palace. "Do you think he'll ever understand what he is?" Daniel asked quietly. Ariana smiled, brushing a hand over their son's head. "I think he'll understand what he means." Daniel nodded. "And us." She leaned into him. "We'll guide him, as long as it takes." The crystals hummed, gently echoing their promise. Not a promise of power, not of legacy, but of love, the kind that remakes worlds.